British boxing champion Anthony Joshua is recovering after being involved in a deadly car crash in Nigeria. Local authorities say Joshua sustained minor bruising in Monday's crash. The crash comes just days after Joshua won a big match against Jake Paul.
Anthony Joshua, who barely avoided death, is hauled from the wreckage of a wrecked SUV while writhing in agony. The FBI has detained Jake Paul after his identity was linked to the fatal vehicle accident that almost claimed Anthony Joshua's life, and there is a complete collapse in the boxing world. Two individuals from Joshua's inner circle are killed in a Nigerian crash a few days after Joshua humiliated him in the ring. As the Federal Bureau of Investigation looks into what actually happened, Jake Paul is apparently currently in the custody of federal officials. Since a global superstar's closest allies perish and the man he just defeated is forced to face the federal government, this ceases to seem like a coincidence and begins to feel like a horror that no one is prepared to describe.
Former world heavyweight champion visibly in pain as he is helped from the wreckage after this horror crash that killed two people. Anthony Joshua was injured and taken to hospital.
What was supposed to be a peaceful post-fight victory journey descended into complete chaos. A luxury SUV transporting Joshua and his inner entourage crashed into a crater in the middle of the road. They're celebrating, boasting grins and laughing as if nothing could ever break them. The next scene shows sirens blaring into the night and bodies on the asphalt.
He was travelling in, hit a stationary truck on a busy highway in Nigeria. The British boxer is on holiday in Africa following his win over American boxer Jake Paul.
The internet abruptly shut down at that very moment. A world-renowned celebrity leaves with only minor wounds. The disaster occurs days after a humiliating high-stakes altercation that destroyed reputations and jeopardized millions of future earnings, and two trusted men are killed instantly. People begin to perceive something unsettlingly well-timed, hidden beneath subdued briefings and surrounded by questions no one seems eager to address at that point rather than a random catastrophe.
Photos that have emerged online that show him sitting behind the driver's seat with his top off, surrounded with glass, broken glass.
Then the line that made all the difference appeared. Jake Paul supposedly made a joke about Joshua not following the script in the midst of the fallout, and that one comment went viral online like a match in a dry forest. Some dismissed it as hype for boxing. Something much more disturbing was heard by others. Suddenly, there was no longer any debate over punches. They were analyzing intent, timing, tone, and word choice.
The crash happened on December 29, 2025, on the Lagos-Ibadan motorway near Makun in Ogun State, a stretch of road known for deadly accidents.
It'd be crazy if all of the fighters who fight Jake Paul end up befalling some sort of terrible tragedy.
Then the line that made all the difference appeared. Jake Paul supposedly made a joke about Joshua not following the script in the midst of the fallout, and that one comment went viral online like a match in a dry forest. Some dismissed it as hype for boxing. Something much more disturbing was heard by others. Suddenly, there was no longer any debate over punches. They were analyzing intent, timing, tone, and word choice.
As news broke, shock rippled through Joshua's hometown community in Nigeria. Adamamala Joshua, the uncle of Anthony Joshua's father, said the news came as a great shock.
Definitely, it was a shock for us. So he has been coming. At least he comes not less than 3-4 times in a year. So that was not the first time of his coming home. So he comes regularly. I applies that road regularly. So they are very conversant with that road. So it was a great shock for us.
At this point, perception begins to overtake reasoning. The public no longer perceives coincidence as random when enough odd outcomes cluster around a single name. Health collapses, financial implosions, careers evaporating overnight. Although each scenario is distinct on paper, they are all emotionally connected in the same digital story. The story's focus shifted from facts to inevitable outcomes, which social media loves to exploit.
It's that of great love for this man, because he's a man of the people. He's very close to the grassroots. It's not the type that goes about with security guard when he comes around. All the people are very close to him, and he too is very free among the people. So it makes...
That's the shift that's harmful, because every new tragedy feels predetermined once people think there's a pattern. Every rejection seems hurried, and every explanation seems prepared. The tale is then no longer dictated by the facts. This goes far beyond a single collision or altercation, as momentum has already determined.
Joshua was in Nigeria following his knockout victory over YouTuber turned boxer Jake Paul less than a fortnight ago, who posted online saying he's praying for those who lost their lives and for his former adversary. Joshua posted this on Instagram playing table tennis with Latif Ayodele just hours before the incident.
Immediately following the collision, an odd occurrence occurred. Any significant incident associated with a global battle that generates tens of millions of dollars involves private logistics, foreign travel, digital contracts, and high-profile rivals immediately beyond the scope of sport. That is the boundary between federal interest and entertainment.
The car he was travelling in collided with a stationary truck pictured here in photos taken by the authorities. After his latest victory, what should have been a moment of celebration has instead become one of tragedy.
Behind the scenes, regarding timelines, messages, and business repercussions related to the actual battle, people began to whisper. Investigators always see things that fans never do. Punches were no longer the focus of this. It focused on the events leading up to, following, and as a result of the battle. And as those inquiries arose, both insiders and investigators discovered the name of the uncomfortable Jake Paul.
Sagamu, which is where Joshua has relatives. Of course, he fought 10 days ago in Miami, and he was heading home to Nigeria, where he was brought up, or he went to boarding school anyway, for the new year.
The plot takes a dramatic shift at this point. Cash. There was more to the fight than just amusement. The moment the last bell sounded, a complex network of promises, incentives, endorsements, betting exposure, and future agreements changed. When one team suffers a significant defeat, the situation becomes contractual, and contracts put pressure on areas that supporters are blind to.
As everybody shouts, Anthony Joshua, I mean to go there. Everybody just they do picture. So many everybody do shouting, so they know loud down. So some people loud down. Every say they will see star, they don't go shout.
Conversations allegedly changed from celebration to containment behind closed doors. Insurers checked provisions, sponsors reevaluated optics, and partners discreetly inquired as to whether anything related to the repercussions could jeopardize their exposure. At that point, timelines begin to be examined, communications are saved, and every off-camera exchange becomes significant.
Within hours, social media users revived a bizarre theory, one that has circulated before, now being called the Jake Paul curse.
This explains why the crash is no longer viewed as a singular tragedy. Coincidences seem much less innocent when monetary stakes and reputational harm are involved. At that point, when everything went wrong, the focus shifted from punches to who had suffered the most losses.
That fighters who defeat Jake Paul later suffer serious misfortune. Joshua's crash, coming days after his victory over Paul, reignited the theory and pushed it into viral territory.
Despite official explanations, the tale continued to evolve rather than settle. At breakneck pace, Old interviews, screenshots, films, and casual remarks reappeared. They were all reframed to fit into an expanding story that seemed to transcend any one incident. The timeline was stretched forward and backward with each additional piece of content until the crash was at the heart of something far bigger. This was particularly erratic because of how quickly popular opinion solidified. Every update was filtered via suspicion when it was determined that the sequence felt strange. The standard justifications sounded prepared, conventional methods felt calculated, and rather than reducing curiosity, quiet heightened it. Instead of waiting for responses, the internet began creating its own version in real time.
Wouldn't it be crazy if Mike Tyson almost died before the fight? He had 8 blood transfusions, lost half his blood from a bleeding ulcer in the hospital for weeks. Obviously today, it'd be crazy if Anthony Joshua was involved in a fatal car crash where 2 of his friends are now dead.
Then things started to get dangerous. Because momentum feeds on ambiguity, a story driven by uncertainty is immune to certainty. And every hour that passed made the question more urgent. Without the backing of something more substantial, how can one conflict, one crash, and one name stay so closely connected to one another? By now, the fear was gone from the internet. It was within. Promoters stopped talking. The combatants stopped joking. Leaders in the industry who usually rushed to comment either said nothing at all or gave their words great thought, because the same idea was immediately understood by all. Stories like these are difficult to ignore, even if no charges are ever made.
Gets into a car accident, 2 people die right after Jake Paul said he didn't follow the script. I'm kind of lost. What script? Was it just boxing or was there something else going on?
Despite official explanations, the tale continued to evolve rather than settle. At breakneck pace, old interviews, screenshots, films, and casual remarks reappeared. They were all reframed to fit into an expanding story that seemed to transcend any one incident. The timeline was stretched forward and backward with each additional piece of content until the crash was at the heart of something far bigger. This was particularly erratic because of how quickly popular opinion solidified. Every update was filtered via suspicion when it was determined that the sequence felt strange. The standard justification sounded prepared. Conventional methods felt calculated, and rather than reducing curiosity, quiet heightened it. Instead of waiting for responses, the internet began creating its own version in real time.
Reaction there out of Jake Paul, but he gets caught with his hands down and his chin served on a platter for that right hand right there. And look at Jake Paul's face. He knew it right away. He said, "Woo!"
Hey guys, I'm okay. Just pray for me, all right?
At that point, the circumstances became perilous. A narrative that is propelled by momentum is impervious to confidence, as momentum thrives on uncertainty. Additionally, the query became louder with each hour that went by. Without a more profound connection, how can a single battle, a single crash, and a single name remain so closely linked? By this point, the terror had left the internet. Internal, promoters remained silent. Combatants ceased making jokes. Usually quick to respond, industry leaders suddenly weighed their comments carefully or said nothing at all, because everyone simultaneously grasped the same concept. Such stories don't go away easily. Even in the absence of charges, they cause harm.
Union Jack flag alongside the Nigerian flag when Anthony Joshua fights. He's often spoken so proudly about his Nigerian heritage and his right shoulder. There's often a tattoo of an Africa flag with Nigeria map inscribed in there. So when it comes to Nigeria, Anthony Joshua is very proud of his heritage. He's often seen visiting the country.
The issue changed to fallout. Future battles are in the air. Sponsorships are being quietly reevaluated. Legal teams intervened early because doubt had turned into a liability rather than because something had been confirmed. Perception might be more costly in boxing than a defeat. Additionally, perception is radioactive at the moment. For this reason, this particular moment was more significant than the collision, the remarks, or the ideas. Because professions don't wait for decisions once a story reaches this stage. When under pressure, they respond. And whether anyone wanted to acknowledge it or not, pressure was already tightening around everyone involved in this story, increasing with each passing hour.
Comfort, but according to police anyway, they are minor injuries and he is fine. But the family are saying that they are shocked by what's happened. And there was a brief statement, we're hoping for his speedy recovery, they say, and also the people who sadly passed away.
At this point, the story veered from conjecture to conviction. The Jake Paul's curse became to be seen as a law and ceased to be a joke, talked about as though it already existed because it was repeated so frequently. Names were stacked, timelines were knitted together, and every unfortunate incident involving a previous foe was woven into a single, unavoidable thread. The rhythm was embraced by the creators. If it were transformed into a drum beat and played again until the coincidence felt structured, wouldn't it be insane? Jake Paul's name is at the center of a single narrative that emotionally unites health crises, financial catastrophes, and personal implosions, all of which are distinct on paper. Proof ceased to matter at that moment. It was familiarity. Additionally, online familiarity builds confidence.
Adding that he was praying for Anthony Joshua, the victims, and everyone affected.
And once that conviction takes hold, it becomes self-sustaining. The myth is fueled by every new headline. Suspicion is strengthened by each denial. Additionally, every quiet is construed as confirmation. At that point, a theory no longer requires proof because the general public has already determined that the pattern seems plausible and that emotions now take precedence over facts. Was a conspiracy created by the internet out of tragedy? Or did this altercation set off a series of events so explosive that even those involved are preferring to remain silent rather than respond?